I very much appreciate being invited by the KS Kondapalli Seetha Ramaiah Memorial Committee. It's a real privilege to come, to be honored to one of the great martyrs of the Indian Revolution and a founder of one of the major groups of the Indian Revolution, which has given the roots of any of the revolutionary struggle. Very starting point of Kondapalli Seetha Ramaiah is how he struggled from the very time of his, or the time of, from the very roots, the formative era from the Telangana struggle, and right from there, and got all his origins, and how he resurrected that in the time of the Naxalbari struggle. And even at the helm of the highest repression, he could carry on work and to carry on the movements in Naxalbari and Shikakulm under the leadership of the AP committee of CPML. And within the committee, he did a lot of work too. Even the time when officially there were no mass organizations, the CPML didn't call for mass organizations. He even kept the thread of mass organizations being formed. And even in the time when the official line of Charu Mazumdar and CPML was not to have mass organizations, he raised that wave. He waved the banner that at least we can have some mass fronts, like Virasam was formed, and then later on RSU and those Virasam in 1970, and later on other organizations. This was a significant part that even in that time he did this. Then in 1974 he wrote a historical self-criticism is very important on the errors of the CPML, whether it was calling Mao China's chairman, or the banning of mass organizations, or China's chairman is our chairman, and just pursuing line of annihilation and the abandoning mass movements. And he pursued, and it was a very important line that led to the formation of this, which was part of the which actually derived with the formation also of the COC, the Central Organizing Committee, in which he with Jagjit Singh Johal, who just died, and other Suniti Kumar Ghosh got this but KS really triggered this off of this whole self-criticism of CPML, which eulogized the authority of the leader, annihilation of enemy, abandoned mass organizations. And he worked very hard on it. And in 1977, he worked very critically. There was peasant struggles in Jagtial, there were peasant struggles in Karimnagar. And he worked very hard on the road to working on those mass struggles to prepare. So even if he kept the squads, but he restrained arms to prepare for it. And that was very significant with the 1970 Jagtial movement. And that preparation period, then the emergency. And then of course, before that, the formation of Andhra Pradesh Radical Students Union. It was very significant in 74. It just had its 50th anniversary. And he insisted on the question of persisting with the line of the new democratization, Mao thought, and that. And he laid the whole guidelines with Varabara and a lot of other people on the whole question of how we have to raise the level of armed resistance. And we can never compromise on that. And that happened even in a time of emergency time, he organized the RSU. And later on, when the splinters in the COC, he formed the CPML People's War Group. That was a historic thing, which started off it continued the Naib Naxal and led to the People's War Group. And it led to an armed struggle in the areas of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, which was a very significant movement. And it had such intensity that had never happened in this country perhaps before since the time of Naxalbari. But this time it worked on the line of having mass organizations and mass fronts. Like the APRSU, the Radical Youth League that was formed earlier in Virasam. And they led the historic go-to-village campaigns, which started in 78, then in 84, and which really stirred the spirit of the new democratic revolution, rallied the peasantry, and is very significant, it rallied the landless peasants, the tribals, and the landed peasantry. And this is very important in places like Karimnagar, Jagtial, a lot of areas, that the united front could be formed of the poor peasantry and the landless peasantry, or basically the Dalits, and then with the Adivasis in the tribal areas. And there are various struggles, various also massacres that heroically were resisted, like Indra Valley, and then there were a lot of significant things in Karamchadu for the Dalits. So this went on, and one of the very significant parts is how because of KS's leadership, the party could withstand very, very intense repression. And to do that was really historic. It was a way of one of the strongest repression. There was the army, the parliament was brought in. Still the party could survive, and still it could float along. Still it could swim along the most difficult tide. And in both phases, 80, 84 and 84, 89, it did this. This was very, very tough. and just resisting the police forces, resisting the paramilitary forces was heroic for his best people. And then, one of his very important things is his case's orientation of a party. Whatever the level of the struggle, he always gave emphasis how you make activism, how you can work to develop a line of the party, how you can whether they may whatever errors you make struggle, but you must lead by the party. And he gave a lot of emphasis on a centralized party. He also, there were other things KS raised up. He's very important as a writer, what he wrote about India being semi-feudal, which was very important. A lot of people were bringing up thesis that India is capitalist and the imperialism is the main continent. KS refuted it. He also refuted these organs, people who are saying nationalities is the main contradiction. And this was he struggled against it even ideologically and theoretically. KS then went on, and then he also gave a very strong he gave a strong orientation also when China went divisionist. He also fought those people who were defending China and saying that China is a socialist country. This is also a significant part of it all. Here Kahan also wrote on fascism, the whole question of, and he wrote also on the caste movement is very important. A lot of communist revolutionaries were paying a deaf ear one time to caste, they neglected caste, but he wanted to integrate this question of caste very deeply. And there were other things like the question of independence of the Indian state. That actually we didn't get true independence in 47. He asserted those points. And then he also wanted to, of course he didn't succeed in but he also respected other people, other groups, like people like Kanai Chatterjee, people from MCC and this all. The whole thing is now how we put it in light today. And I think that what perhaps we are missing today is because we have such strong repression today that we are not able to have mass movements like we had in the earlier. So we have to see how we can have, one of the things is even people, organizations, the APIRC got demolished and mass organized. So how do we revive mass movements? This is very important. And I think today even if this struggle going on Dankarnest or going on by the Maoists, still we cannot develop any movement in the plain areas. And I think Kondapalli Seetha Ramaiah in his time wrote about how we integrate movements even in plain areas, how we develop those. And then of course the weakness of urban work. And now of course, the other thing is, of course, he was out of the People's War group, and that is the debate about. That's another point of it. But I think we have to take up this very important point of his whole focal points, what he put in political history, and I think he can be put on par. This whole question of the roots of the movement can be put on par like other leaders put on, like Joe Masuson in the Philippines or Gonzalo in Peru and various things. And then also I remember how in Mumbai he was admired, how the People's War group was admired. I remember people in Mumbai, like people like Sundar Navalkar, they spoke very highly about the whole People's War, the braveness of the movement and the positivity of the movement of the People's War. And of course, the work could have been errors, like the question of the centralization of the armed activities, the question of whether there was enough integration of arms corps with mass movements, enough independence of mass organizations, independent of Mao thought, and whether the independent functioning within the mass organization, these points were there, integration of squads with mass activities and weaknesses. But I think the whole question was, it was a landmark time that KS defined, and a very, very important time. And we have to now revive those lessons in a time when we are almost on the threat also of fascism, of we call proto or neo-fascism. We're on the threat of that. So, and we need to now integrate and look at how we build that united front and develop that concept also, how to understand that also. And now, of course, there are so many divisions even happening in our own movement today. So this is where I think we have to remember. And when I also look up to one of K.S. points, he always respected the strong points of Charu Mazumdar. A lot of people are saying, oh, Charu Mazumdar's errors and Charu. Yes, of course, there were gross mistakes, but he defended the very basis and the roots of some of the work. It's like some intellectuals today are just calling him an anarchist, but he defended it. And I think it's a very important way that he even defended Charu Mazumdar. And he ultimately defended the party, the Marxist-Leninist or Marxist-Leninist Maoist party concept, Mao Zedong thought. And then of course we have they have a complex international situation today. We are almost on the verge of another war, the crisis in Palestine, crisis in Russia. So we have to take lessons of what perhaps KS said at that time also. when this contradiction between, of course, that time we had Soviet social imperialism, that's no more there, but how we take the inter-contradictions in the world. And I think, and is of course the contribution to how the agrarian revolution, which we have to resurrect in a form relevant in India today. We have to wear the different types of economy with this liberalization and globalization. But still, we have to understand how to adapt it in a semi-feudal country. I think basically that's my view. So I'm very happy again to be here. I'm really privileged that I could honor one of the great communist leaders perhaps ever, in history, and who wrote a landmark. So I finished this. I'm very grateful to be part of it, to address this committee. I thank the audience for listening. Red salutes to Kondapalli Seetha Ramaiah.